Okay, good morning, everyone. We're all here, and I'm glad that Chris is with us because first topic is probably he could answer well too, and I could answer well too, and but I think we'd like to hear what other people have to say first. And we have a number of topics today, and I do not anticipate getting to all of them, but that's good. The first one is if you have a young student, such as a teenager in an otherwise all adult class, who is developing the same skill level as the adults, he's a fast and dedicated learner, or she's a fast and dedicated learner, and has a positive attitude. Should I create a junior grade brown and black belt for him, or promote him to an appropriate adult grade belt when he reaches that skill level? Okay. I don't know how young students you take into your programs. My minimum age used to be 10. When I start back up, it'll be age 12. But any input from Darren or Tom initially, or thoughts?
Usually on my program, Sensei, I have mostly adults. Unless there's a special request, and I've had those before, the youngest that I take in my classes is 15. I've had on occasion a couple of requests for some students that were a little bit more mature and a little bit ahead of their growing cycle. So I've allowed those in class, and they've done well. So I've had one actually in class right now that does exceptionally well, and better than majority of adults. So it's been working out for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I would throw in that my my daughter's turning 16, has several friends who've gone through fairly demanding karate. It's usually karate or taekwondo or one of the hard martial arts. And they all seem to have black belts at age 13 or 14. And it's so common that it just makes me wonder about this, the significance, the meaning of black belts in and of itself. And all of them, because they're no longer doing these martial arts, just sort of laugh it off. It's like, oh yeah, I have a black belt in taekwondo that I got when I was 13 or 14. If they were confronted now physically, or they had to defend themselves, I don't think they feel confident about doing so. I see more significance into the black belt rank than just fulfilling a bunch of physical hurdles or showing that you have kata or the essential physical stuff in place. I think there's an argument for having junior grades because it indicates not quite the maturity that an adult black belt would have, and responsibilities they have ethically, and all the other levels of maturity and continuity that go with Shodan ranking. So I think they're different things.
Okay.
I didn't expand as much as I wanted to. I was about to start talking, so I stopped. But I think Tom, my question and concern with that topic, pretty good. I had the same outlook as he had just mentioned. It was very well put together.
Yes.
Okay. Want to toss your 3 cents in, Chris?
Yeah, I'll answer the question first. There's a couple of things that came up here that are interesting too. So I used to take students as young as 3 years old. I had 3 different programs, the kinder program, which was like 3 to 5, and then the junior program, which is 6 to 12. And then teens and adults, I always put together, and that's 13 and up. So I don't have the resources for the kinder program, so we stopped that pre-COVID. It was at an earlier time, in the day, and I just couldn't get there end time, and the teachers I had, had other obligations. But all that to say is they didn't all do the same curriculum. That wouldn't be wise. But they all had their own belt structure, from white belt to, yes, black belt. So for the kinders, you would earn a kinder black belt. The juniors, you would earn a junior black belt, and then teens and adults would earn a full black belt. So the requirements were a little bit different. The expectations are a little bit different. There's no expectation that just because you got a black belt as a kid that you're going to be as effective as an adult. And sometimes it's actually the other way around too, depending on who you have, in your younger age group. At times, I will pull people from our juniors program into the adult program if I see them doing really well. I think it's important for them to go up against bigger people, because in real life, that's what it's going to be. You're either going to be faced with multiple people or somebody that's physically probably bigger and stronger. So it's good exposure, and it's always worked out well. So now we have two programs. We have a juniors program and a teen and adult program. They both earn black belts. It does not represent the same thing. It doesn't mean the same thing. You get a junior black belt, and then a lot of times those people that get a junior black belt actually transition into the teen and adult class. And I start them off with in our curriculum anyway, it's like the third belt up as an orange adult belt. So that's the equivalent of a junior black belt is an orange adult belt. And then they continue their journey from there. It's an understanding of, basically you haven't arrived just because you have a junior black belt. And we have a pretty good success rate. I would say 90% of the students that reach a junior black belt will continue on in the teen and adult class. And then by the time they earn an adult black belt, a few more years has gone by. So they're definitely ready at that point, and probably an adult. Some of them may be 17 or 16, 17, something like that. So it's important also to note that we're using something that was kind of developed in Japan, right? The whole belt structure and to some extent the way we do grading. And historically, a black belt is not kind of sometimes what we make it out to be here. Everything, in fact, a Q rank basically means an understudy, right? An under rank. So black belt is really your first official rank. And the expectation is that you continue, after black belt, because you're now an official accepted student, a rank holder in that dojo, and you're going to continue training. So historically, even like, post World War II, a lot of the GIs got a black belt in, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, depending on who they were studying with. And they certainly, wouldn't have been, that great, in that time. Yes, the training was more intense. But my point is, a black belt, sometimes here we make it out to be, bigger than it is. And historically, it's really not, at least a shodan, subsequent, dan ranks, yes. So it just depends how your dojo is structured, I think, and how you treat, a black belt as, what it is. We make it very clear to the students, to the parents, the kids or whatever, that it's basically like going from, junior high to high school, or from high school to college. It's not the end of the journey. It's just a marker that you're transitioning into a higher level of education.
Okay. Who was going to say something? Someone going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to affirm a lot of what Chris just said based on my experience in Iaido, in an organization that is entirely overseen by Japanese sensei, and has a lot of involvement with them in terms of guest teaching in the United States and is entirely focused on Japan. United States Kendo Federation is a branch of the All Japan Kendo Federation, which oversees testing. And yes, it's not as significant a deal in Japan, definitely for Kendo and Iaido to be a black belt. It took me 3 years of going to class probably once a week, much less demanding. And it was only 12 kata that you had to show competence in. But the other side of this is to really advance in Dan rankings. It is based very much on extremely refined technical mastery. It's not George's conception of higher Dan rankings, and I think it's a legitimate and inspiring one. The idea of giving back to the art after 5th or 6th Dan and focusing less on the technical. I think there's a lot of value in that. In Iaido, the Iaido I experienced, it is very technical, and to be an 8th Dan is the highest they go in this form of swordsmanship, and it's only a 1% pass rate once you can test many times to reach 8th Dan. It's considered a great distinction that very few people attain. So they conceive of that very high Dan rank as just as I've described, some huge distinction, not something that you just get by serving the Ryu or anything like that. So it's very variable depending on context. And I would add that with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, for as controversial as it is and as philosophically different as it is with traditional Jiu-Jitsu, it's hard to become a black belt. The black belt means perhaps more to attain in that form of Jiu-Jitsu than any other I can think of, and it can take incredible amounts of time and discipline and commitment. And I see that definition of black belt as being of great significance. They've turned it into something different than what the original Japanese conception is. To say you're a black belt in BJJ, to me, earns a different level of respect than a lot of other arts for whatever it's the art's flaws. So it's contextual for me.
Okay. We've created another issue here, which I think we'll take up later, and that is kind of like general philosophical criteria for higher black.
Sorry for getting off the subject.
Oh, it's fine to bring it up because it's a worthwhile topic, because even different organizations within Jiu-Jitsu have different criteria, philosophical criteria. I'm not necessarily referring to belt, technical skills per se, but technical skills are one factor. So anyway, good morning, John. Jonathan, glad to have you with us. Let me get my 2 cents in. First of all, Chris hit a lot of good points. I particularly like the realization for his junior students that they realize that their black belt would be equivalent to an orange belt going into the adult program, and that puts a different face or a different reality into the greater scheme of things, or the learning process, and that's good, because that's healthier for the students. I know there are many kids that they got their black belt in karate or judo or whatever it is, and the public assumption is that a black belt is a black belt. And I think that's the great misconception. The other issue is, I forgot what it was now. Okay, it'll come back to me later. I've dealt with kids probably from junior high up. I really loved teaching junior high kids in a junior high environment because they're crazy. But they also, if they have a positive attitude, they can learn anything fast. And that's kind of scary, because as we get to be adults, we tend to slow down because we're more cautious, which isn't necessarily bad. But anyway, what I did and have done, and I've never had a problem with this. I kind of followed Seki's concept that is that a black belt is a black belt is a black belt. And I've seen a lot of, I don't want to call them kiddie programs because they do teach skills, but I've seen great judo programs for smaller children under 10. I've seen it in karate, I've seen it in other martial arts, and it can work, but as Chris has done, you've got to have a well-developed program. They have that realization that what they're learning as a kid is not the same criteria as what they're learning as an adult for that black belt rank. Seki's minimum age was 10 for students, and his rationale was that at age 10, a kid, a 10-year-old on average, has their large muscle skills fairly coordinated because jiu-jitsu uses a lot of small muscle skills. And a 10-year-old can understand the concept that they have the potential of hurting another person. So those were his two criteria. I have had teenagers and young adults that have not, that I've seen in other dojo, and even mine for a while, that could not meet the second criteria. And when they're a teenager, a young adult, and they have that attitude, I do my best to get them out of the program because they're going to injure someone or themselves. Anyway, so I'll take kids as young as 10, 12. But what I've done, and because this problem came up with when I was doing this in junior high school, I will take, if a kid is progressing and they're around age 6, I will not, I have never promoted a student to black belt under the age of 16 yet. It still could happen, but I doubt it. Because I'm looking for a certain amount of maturity in a black belt. And what I'll do is I'll say, okay, you've made it to Shodan, you have the technical skills, you've got a really positive attitude. I can put them into teaching situations, or let them teach classes under my supervision, because under age 18, they're not legally responsible for themselves. So I really don't see the value of saying, okay, now you can go out and teach the art to others, because at least in California, they can't. Well, they could, but their parents would be responsible. Anyway, and then what I'll do, I'll say, look, if you stay with the program, and you continue to grow and you're teaching, and the students, because this person, as they've grown in the class and the students do develop respect for them. And they've developed the skills on helping other students learn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'll say to them, here's the way it goes. When you turn 18, on your 18th birthday, I will request your instructor certification from the AJA. And the day after your 18th birthday, I will test you for Nidan, because they've been at black belt for 2 years now. There's got to be, and usually that works really well. And I've gotten over the years, I've got five kids that was done to them. They stuck with the program. One of them is still teaching, different style, different kind of jiu-jitsu, but they're still teaching the art. Others, I think 2 of them have met their demise. They passed away, or were drugs got to them, or something of that sort. But there's a process, and I think you have to have with kids, you have to have a process that's rational and that they can accept, that's reasonable to them. Because in my book, a black belt is a black belt. And of course, I'm not dealing with smaller kids, but I have the same expectation if a person is 16 years old, 15 years old, or 25 years old in terms of maturity and ability to work with students and all those other factors that come into play, not just their own technical skills and growth. It's, are they developing into a sensei? Because in my book, and Seki's book, black belt grades were teaching grades. As Chris said, or whatever, Tom said, first degree black belt, even Seki said, when I got first degree black belt, it says, now you're ready to start learning the art. And I think that's true, that, when you get to black belt, now if you're going to stick with it, you're ready to learn. And it's amazing what you pick up after you become Shodan. And as Tom said, all the intricacies of Iaido, this is what you're working on now, at the intricacies. And I've been doing this for 55 years. I'm still learning. Writing my next book, I'm learning from writing that next book. So in any case, it's a process. So I think
I would add that it's as complicated and sometimes problematic as ranking is in martial arts and all the variables. It's a masterful thing to have, and Kano still deserves credit for coming up with this external ranking system that is so meaningful to so many people on different levels. And it's what distinguishes martial arts from just sporting achievements, for example, where you might have a 16-year-old gymnast who has tremendous skills and can exceed the performance of 25-year-olds, but have no mental conception of what the sport is or any kind of sense of maturity. And that's where belt rankings can come in and symbolize something different in addition to physical mastery.
I do agree with you, because you can have the physical mastery and there's nothing going on. I'd say there's nothing going on inside in terms of I hate to use the term spirituality of the art. I don't know if that's a correct term. I don't want to make it a religious thing, but you can have the physical skills and not be there emotionally or holistically,
That's
or
right. Yes.
whatever term you want to call it. And that's where you have to me, that's where you draw the line between, are you going to be a black belt or not?
Absolutely.
And that's a really subjective issue.
And those qualities that you're describing, George, are emphasized even more as you advance in Budoshin levels of Dan, where the physical side, I mean, there's no way that a very old person who's a very high ranking person in our art it's not about competition with younger people. It's far beyond the physical, and it becomes more spiritually and ethically significant.
That's right.
As you move
Yes.
on. And you see that reflected if you say, listen, 6th and 7th Dan, a necessity for attaining those ranks in Budoshin Jujitsu is giving back to the art, teaching, helping other people. Those are all qualities that transcend the physical, obviously.
Yeah. And I would agree with that, because I do, and this is, and I've seen it in classroom situations in various, when I've taught various public school topics. There are some kids that simply excel so highly because they've got, the space between their ears is really working.
I like that.
that's one thing that's amazed me as a teacher is that, sometimes kids really see through all the flack in the world and they see what's important. I've seen brown belts come up with combinations of techniques that I've never seen before. And they're able to take, how do you say, they're able to take these tools and use them to make something. And to me, that should be all of our goals as sensei, is to get our students to that point where they can, how do you say, they realize they have the tools to do something and they can be creative with it and it works. And I think that transcends almost anything you do in life or a different way of doing things.
I wonder if that's also based partly on brown belts, there being such a long period of remaining a high Yudansha rank in Budoshin Jujitsu and probably other arts, where there's a sense of hunger or the sense of, well, I'm reaching this point where I'll test for Shodan, and that's so significant, and maybe their brains are functioning in a more, not ambitious, but hungry way or something. I don't know.
Okay. Well, see, a person, I won't test a person for black belt unless I know they can make it. And that's my responsibility as a sensei, is to nurture, because they've got the basic physical skills. My job is to nurture them at that point, to give them the confidence, to have them smooth. Like I say, now that you're brown belt, you're basically smoothing things out. You're finding out what works best for you. And the brown belt third through first does take some time. It can take a year, it can take 2 years. Seki didn't have a second degree brown belt, and he would not promote a Sankyu to EQ unless he was considering promoting them to black belt. So being promoted, I do the same thing with first Q. If I promote a student to first Q, they know I'm looking at them for black belt. It's kind of like it's a make or break thing. And I'm not putting any additional pressure on them. It's just that they need to realize that they're coming up to, as Tom said, they're coming up to something big. And there's a difference between being referred to as a student and being referred to as sensei. And
Yes.
It's a responsibility. And my only frustration with all of this is that sometimes I'll get a person up to black belt and then they end up saying, well, I don't want to teach. And that's a whole other issue. Because my goal is, I'm glad I continue as a student, but I'd like you to go out, start your own dojo. I'm being very idealistic here, because it's a whole different ballgame to be a second or third degree black belt in a class and be out teaching on your own with all those responsibilities. And that's a whole different ballgame in itself. So anyway, any other thoughts on this? Or John and Robert, you came in kind of late on this discussion, or
yeah. No, I have a systematic program for teaching leadership skills. And we start all the way at the beginning, and I introduce them to things like command presence and, essentially how they take charge of a class. And our classes are structured in such a way that they're sort of split up into groups. And that's where they're under close supervision as they work their way through. I call it SEAL team for obvious reasons for me. And it stands for Spirit, Excellence, Attitude, Leadership. And so that's sort of what I like to try to promote within the school. And that said, it's an imperfect process at best, because you do run across people that either don't have the time to teach or they don't want to teach. And those are the ones that I'm hoping to inspire to teach. I want to try to move them outside of themselves. You know, in other words, to something, I want them looking for something larger than just their own selfish interests. And that's sort of my goal, somewhat idealistically speaking, I guess. So.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm jotting down some notes here because we've got we're bringing up some good future topics, issues in the process of this discussion. Any other thoughts on this, or?
In the case of my dojo, I like to make sure that when they're getting up to brown and working on their black, that they have a full understanding of the cultural background of jujitsu and the history and, you know, all the movements, because a lot of the movements that we teach, there is a story how the movement was invented and how it was made. If you've done a bit of judo as well, you will know that certain throws were made by Jigoro Kano, but there was a story behind it. And I think when you're teaching at that level, you've got to also make it interesting for, you know, for students. So I tell the future brown belts or black belts that are coming up that you've got to make it interesting. If you're not interested in the background of these movements and how they were invented or how they were made in battle, I can straight away tell that he's not black belt material. If he's just interested in a belt, but he's not interested in the background and the history of these movements, that's my indication that I can tell he's not mentally ready for that level of teaching, even if he's good at the techniques, but I feel something is lacking. I'll tell him that if you need to spend more time getting ready for a black belt, I think you need to learn more of the foundation of all these movements. And that's my opinion. That's how I can tell the difference between who is going to be a black belt and who just wants to put on the black belt.
Right. And I think we're all bringing up a valid point. There is a attitude that
That's right.
we're seeking to develop in a potential black belt because we want to see them continue in some form or other to teach the art to others. And there's that culture they
That's
need.
right.
They need to acquire
Exactly.
that culture in order to help others get it.
Thank you, Mr. Kirby. I think you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
You put it in
yes.
better words.
No. And there are different ways of explaining things. But I think that's what we're all, you know, the brain cells connected up here. I think we're all trying to say the same thing in different ways, and that's perfectly all right. And I think it's you're absolutely correct. I know a lot of adults that have gotten their black belts in martial arts, and they have no desire to teach. And they got their black belt. They're happy. They go on to something else in life,
Which is very sad.
which is you're right, because they have all this technical skill
Exactly.
that they could help others with. And
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, and they choose simply to say, okay, been there, done that. Goodbye.
Well, and it sounds
Sad.
like you, George, both you and Jonathan do this explicitly. And I mean, clearly, Jonathan, if is having these conversations with people as they're advancing, that deserves terrific credit, because I've been in situations where the discussion of rank advancement is something that some sensei avoid because they don't want to be pushed, because everyone's so eager to advance, especially to Shodan. And I think that causes caginess or just lack of openness, lack of candor among sensei.
Yes.
And that's just the wrong attitude, where I've been in situations where there's an expectation of testing in a certain number of months, and if that doesn't happen, then there's waiting, and then there's never any discussion, at least in my situation. And then suddenly, oh, well, in 2 weeks, Tom, you'll be testing for this, and does this date work for you? Without having the entire context gotten into. And that's doing any student a disservice, where they don't understand the significance of black belt.
Exactly. We don't, Tom.
if there's an expectation to teach or
I totally
to
agree with you there.
remain
They're
in
just
the art.
covering a syllabus. They're just covering a syllabus. They're good at the syllabus. They've worked on it, but they have no idea what it really means to put that black belt on.
Yeah. And if there's a problem of people in a dojo getting their black belts and then leaving the art, that's a real problem.
And this is why I think a lot of them leave, because they have no idea what it is to be really a black belt.
Yeah,
They're
the
not being taught.
responsibility.
They just cover a syllabus. Oh, you passed your syllabus. You went through all the techniques. Nice. Okay, you're a black belt. He feels something's missing. And that's why probably he thinks, oh, let me move on to another art or do something else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think, as Sensei Kirby said, we're kind of all of like mind of what we'd like to see. But I do want to interject. And, that type of transformation happens from day one, not, at least to me,
Yes.
not like when they hit brown belt, and getting ready for black belt. It's how you've structured the dojo. It's how you teach. It's what you interject in your teaching. It's who you have helping, if they're, enforcing that and perpetuating that. So by the time, really, I mean, if I look around, kind of, where we're at, certainly midway through, they're already kind of in line with that. Most people, stick around. By the time they hit purple belt, blue belt, they're already, thinking along those lines. It's not mechanical anymore, because they're benefiting in ways other than the physical fitness and self-defense. Maybe that's what they come for, but they stay because of the philosophy, because of how it's enriching their lives, and because, more importantly, they're experiencing a transformation. Because you can go to the gym and experience a transformation with your muscle tone and fat content and this and that, but that transformation that happens internally, the more confidence. I'll give you an example. We have a brand new student in my sword class. It's her and her mom that decided to sign up. And it's their first session, and we're about 6 weeks in, right? And one of the things everybody does is they help clean the dojo after class. It's just, that's how I do it. And I turned around and it was her turn, and I turned around and I saw her sitting on the ground with her, with her face covered. I thought, did she fall? Something happened. And a couple of my black belts were, attempting to talk to her. So I walked over, and it's not necessarily we work out pretty hard. So sometimes newer students will feel faint. So I thought maybe that's what it is. So I asked her, and she says, she's okay, but she had some medical challenges, I guess, and had forgotten to take, something, and the workout is really hard. She said, I'm not used to working this hard. And then she goes into, I went through, a couple of years of depression and this and that, and she just kind of opened up. And at the same time, she was happy to be at the dojo, because she was already experiencing, that transformation of building confidence and having something structured and having a goal, having a sense of belonging, so you just got to take advantage of those opportunities. And it's, if you're running things that way, they'll be experiencing that from day one, even though it's not specifically targeted towards that individual as a whole. I mean, sometimes that's why people go to church. That's why they go to certain activities, right? Because they're experiencing that for early on, not later, when they've been there a few years. Mm-hmm. And I just want to add that, although it's always kind of sad when somebody gets a showdown and leaves, I think of it this way. To me, it's more sad from a relationship perspective, because they've been there for a while, presumably, right, to get that far. So from a relationship thing, it's always sad. But at the same time, it's okay, because, like Kano structured this, with the belts and everything. he was a school teacher too. He taught at the university. So he structured this whole thing after an academic curriculum, and to some extent we're following that now. And our society is that way. You go to college, you get a degree, and you leave. Not everybody's going to be a teacher, right? In fact, very few people are going to be a teacher. And they're not checking about how passionate you are and, how into it you are. You are following a curriculum. You are checking off those boxes. And if you pass with a satisfactory grade, you get your diploma and everybody's happy. You shake hands and you go your own way. Some will develop a passion for their topic that they studied. Some will develop a desire to help others, and they'll go on to higher education, and eventually they'll get hired for a job. During that job interview, then you want to make sure that their heart's in the right place and they have a passion for it. But that stuff is not checked just for them to get their diploma, right? You meet your curriculum, you're done. So I think of it the same way. It's, I'm sad from a relationship perspective, but at the same time, it's okay because it's not like it was a requirement, to get your black belt. It was a curriculum you needed to follow. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy there, but either way, it doesn't have to be, a sad thing. So anyway.
Chris, I'm glad you mentioned the part about, when somebody achieves a black belt status, Shodan status, that they leave and that it's okay. Because whether it's me promoting somebody or somebody, or another sensei promoting somebody, if I'm spending the time, and I think we're all on the same page, as we have to remember, even with everything that you just said, that when somebody achieves a Dan rank, that's really just the beginning. So when you put the time and effort in years of development, and again, where we're really consistent in the whole topic is, physically, most people really develop and throughout time of being able to train, but mentally, and learning the origins and putting more time and effort to mentally develop, that takes a longer time in training and being a part of the curriculum and the system and understanding the style, getting to know what the origins are and those type of things. When they make, and I hope this don't take us into another whole topic, but when they finally get, when the sensei takes all of the time and effort to evaluate through time, this individual is now ready, is now prepared physically, mentally, they contribute, they give back, they're a part of, they earn their Dan rank, and then they leave. And I struggle with that. I turn around and I try to look within. I'm like, what did I miss? Because I try to give everything for them to move forward, to be a part of, to have the passion, right, into that individual. And I'm like, why, when they get to this rank that I've said throughout this entire journey, it's only the beginning when you get here, they leave. Mm-hmm. And I look at myself, I'm like, I had to. So you take it personally? Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Darren,
I know the feeling. I know the feeling.
The thing is it's not personal though. Even though it feels like it, because everybody has different goals in life. This is our passion. We love this. And, I sit and think, why does anybody want to do anything else? Why do any other sport or whatever? Like, this has it all, right? And it's a lifelong journey. It's an investment. It checks all the boxes, but we're in a different place. People have different interests. They have different lives. They have different things that they're pursuing. And so we're not always going to be aligned. If everybody thought the same way, we'd probably have less problems in the world, but, or maybe more, I don't know, but that's what it is. So you just don't want them leaving for the wrong reasons, right? Maybe that was their goal. They love you for who you are and your passion and everything. You keep the door open. If their life changes, they'll come back. But some people are just passing through, right? And others are here to stay. And as long as they're not leaving for the wrong reasons, something you did or something in the dojo, some misrepresentation, misunderstanding, then it's okay. I mean, why do people leave jobs? I mean, it's not always a bad thing.
That's
So we have to
I
break
will
it in
say
half.
they always come back.
There you
Always.
go. See,
Yeah.
then that's
Okay.
proof that you're doing things. It's not you. Okay. Because they go out and then they realize, hey, I understand what my sensei was saying, and so then they come back. That's proof to you that you did it the right way,
You can also argue that after reaching a certain point in a given art and then going on to another art or exploring something else is a way of enriching the entire world of martial arts, because you have a certain degree of competence in, say, Budoshin Jujitsu, and you take that to something apparently unrelated or from a different cultural background. Like right now, I'm focusing on Chinese and Korean arts and seeing all the overlapping there, certainly in Hapkido and other very Jujitsu-like forms. But to leave and continue to enrich yourself and then keep up contact with the people at the original dojo, and then maybe go back there for a few more years. And there are all sorts of ways it could play out. And there are plenty of academic comparisons, like I happen to have a law degree. I practiced law for a year and disliked it intensely. So I went into another field that still had a legal aspect to it, but it wasn't like the pure practice of law. So my education was still being engaged there. I see the same relevance with martial arts, where you might not do the exact martial art you have been training in for 10 years, but you might shift over to something related to that.
Okay. We're having fun this morning. Got a lot of good topics for future discussions. And some really good interchange among you guys. It's nice to be able to just sit back and watch this take place. Like this, it's kind of like I go back to when I was in the classroom. If I could get students to interact with each other, and I could just sit back and watch the process, I could actually listen to what they were saying.
And you learn from that as well.
And you learn from that as well. And, I think one thing that, what Chris is saying is valuable in terms of, are you really losing your students? I think what he said about the young lady who was having a problem brought up the issues that one of the things I think is unique for I'll say this regardless of subject area, a good teacher is someone who is willing to take the time to listen to their students without making value judgments. And because many times, I know this in the classroom, in the dojo, other aspects, sometimes all a person wants you to do is listen to them. And 9 times out of 10, they can resolve their own problems if someone listens to them. They can kind of verbalize their concerns, and then they rationalize, this is, and they end up with a positive outcome. And I think that's a unique skill that good teachers in any subject have. They're human. They're not just an expounder of information. And I think you see that a lot more among people who deal with not just subject matter, but coaches, PE people, because you're dealing more with the whole person. Particularly in the martial arts, we're dealing with your physical, we're dealing with your mental, we're dealing with your emotional state. We're dealing with all 3 parameters, and that's a hard responsibility for a sensei.
Yes,
but if students pick up on that and they see you're willing to listen, you've made a connection, and as Darren says, they do come back because yes, the art. I think the art has value to them, but they value you as a person.
Right.
And that's
interesting.
That's
I like that.
That to me is important. And just as a story out of the blue, I got a new member to the BJJY the other day who had a same name as a student I had decades ago, same last name. It's not a common name. Unfortunately, I asked, are you related? They weren't, but that's happened to me in the past where, I've run into one person and then 20 years later, I run into another person with the same last name and it turns out they're related. And that how do you say, that builds a relationship because, and that's the relationship that I think some sensei, some coaches, some teachers do develop with their students because they are willing to listen. And that's a whole different subject area as well. So, but anyway, do anyone else have anything else to say with our original topic was dealing with young students, should they get a junior grade black belt? But the discussion has gone off on a good, number of good tangents. Anyone else want to throw anything else in on this topic before then we have to make a decision here. Okay. The next question has to do with operational aspects of running a dojo. And my question is, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 subtopics under that. Do we want to leave? I don't know if we can get into this and finish it, or whether we want to get into it part ways and then pick the rest of it up next time, or whether we want to end now and just save this for the next time. So anyone have any thoughts on that, or should I just make an administrative decision?
Sensei, I have about 10 minutes before I have to go run to the dojo. So either way, whatever you guys want.
Okay, well, we're not, knowing this group, we won't finish it within 10 minutes.
Right.
So
you guys can continue,
Right.
Oh,
I have
it's
about the
because we
same
enjoy
sensei.
being here and talking to each other. We learn so much that we can talk and talk. It's fine with me. I just enjoy the discussion. So I'm fine. Whatever Mr. Kirby wants to do.
I think probably the wisest thing to do, even though this will be a short, we spent more than the normal amount of time on one topic. Okay, we've been at it for almost a full hour. I think it's probably the wisest thing to do to end it now and start with the second topic next time. Because then we
have plenty of time to discuss that one.
Yes, we have time to discuss that one and no one will have to leave. And I think Chris, unless I'm wrong, is the one that brought up this idea. And, so topics, so I don't want the person who has brought up a topic to have to leave in the middle of discussion of that topic, because that's kind of that would be kind of shortchanging the person. Oh, you have a problem? We'll take care of it next time, maybe. And that's a good way to get rid of a student real fast.
Oh, yes.
So anyway, and this would also allow you, I know in the United States has weird holidays, and tomorrow is Mother's Day. And
oh, yes, that's right. Thank you for reminding me, Mr. Kirby.
And I know many of you have to
do a lot of trouble.
You have obligations to your mothers, your wives, your girlfriends, whoever else. And which is why we lost.
Is it a holiday day? Will it be a holiday?
No, it's not really a holiday.
Oh, it's a Sunday. Usually it's just a weekend.
It's Sunday, so in any case, we'll give you the time to prepare, and you can also say Kirby let us off early today.
No excuse not to get cards. We have to write out cards.
Right. Anyway.
You've just reminded me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here's mine. I'm working on it.
Okay, so
I haven't even started on mine yet.
oh well.
I got no excuse.
So in any case, hope you have a good week, good 2 weeks, and we'll see you. Our next meeting is on today's the 17th. Today is the 7th. It will probably be the 21st, I think, is the
Okay.
next meeting.
I look forward to that.
Unless I come up with something else. I want to wish you all a good day for
Thank you.
Jonathan. Now you can go to sleep.
No, I'm about to have dinner.
Oh, you're about to, what time is it there?
It is. It's the sun is just going down. So
Oh.
let me see. What does it say on my phone? Oh, it's 6 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh, okay, very good.
Just avoid the
Yeah, and the sun
crocodiles.
goes down quite early in winter. We're in winter, so the sun goes down quite early
Ah.
in
Well, you
Zambia at this
gotta,
time.
you gotta put the crocodiles to bed too. So maybe,
Yeah. Well, at this time, I don't go around that area because that's their time to start looking around for their prey.
right. That's PREY, right? Anyway. Okay. Have a good week. Take care.
See ya.
See
Bye,
ya.
everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tom. Bye. Thank
Okay,
you.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Mr. Kirby.